Chris Voss gave me a huge 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon, and I'm grateful to him for bringing you today's video. However the hell you pronounce that, Verbose Host versus Coram, Loot, and Jolly Balloon Man. 2-lander Ginger Brew is good. Or actually a 3-lander with Ginger Brew, we can get the speed up pretty quickly. Delighted Halfling. Draw into another land on our turn, so get down the turn 1 Ginger Brew, and I'll just arbitrarily swing into the left with it. We don't have the speed mechanic up yet, but never know when 1 point of damage is going to make a difference. Secure a Tribe Elder from Loot, and just a tap land from the Jund player. We draw into Teferi, which will be good once we can start getting double card draws, so let's just Windmill Slam our commander and start to get the speed up here. So we go up to speed 1 as soon as the commander enters, and then again I'll go into the left and risk getting our Ginger Brew blown up, and that will get us up to speed 2 once it hits. So next turn will be speed 3, and the turn after that hopefully speed 4. Spirited Companion, we're likely going to be paying into the ability on this to make it unblockable anyway, and get down a Lightning Greaves, so not too worried about any blockers unless they have haste. Got down off a fetch, a tapped Shockland, so not wanting to get his commander in here. Just holding up the 4 mana. Alright, mana being held up by 2 players, so might be looking to get rid of our commander. It's a shame we're not going to be going after the Chasm Skulker here, I don't think. Maybe we can, if we don't have to put mana into Ginger Brew. Let's swing into the right and see what happens, because we can always make Ginger Brew unblockable in response. Might be an idea to get down the Chasm Skulker so that we can try and deal some damage with that. We do manage to land a hit, so in that case I think I will get down the Skulker. The downside of our commander is that it doesn't have any power, so if we lose out on the Ginger Brew we won't be able to deal that 4th bit of damage for speed 4. Witty Roastmaster from the Boros player. Fairy Mastermind came down with Flash at the end of the turn as well, so untapping with that available. And this triggers on, us drawing a second card, so they're going to be drawing some from the Mastermind if we don't get rid of it. And it's this time that Loot comes into play with that horrendous frame. The 2-1 swings in at us. Coram, 2 commanders in a row, so that means we do have to make use of Ginger Brew here to try and get the damage through, which might encourage me to go for the Lightning Greaves then. Might be that with a plus counter on this it would be a 2-2 and we could swing it in over here and they're not willing to block. That might be worth a risk. We've got Imperial Plate, which will be +1/+1 for each card in your hand. We plan on having a lot of those obviously. In order to make an educated guess here I'm just going to get down the Lightning Greaves now. And we could play out the Ominous Seas, but I think I'd rather get more information on what someone's going to potentially do to Ginger Brew. There might be a Pongify here or something like that, and allowed us to equip it. So, like I said, we could risk this going into the left. I'm assuming that they don't have any means of interaction on Ginger Brew, but I'm just going to get up to level 4 now while we've got the chance. So we'll make the Ginger Brew unblockable, except by creatures with haste. And it is noteworthy that Loot does have haste. I don't think this does. Nope, so we'll go into the right again. At which point we will have managed to get our speed up to level 4, and from that point on, as long as we've got our commander in play, whenever we draw a card we draw 2 instead. So there we go, managing to hit Ginger Brew, probably one of the best creatures in the deck for getting the speed up. So now we'll protect the commander with Greaves. Priority still being held up by Loot, but probably going to use that mana for the ability. Get down Otawara as a land, and let's pass the turn at that. Don't think we're going to be using Lorien Reveal to grab an island. Yeah, I don't think so. I suppose if we do, we can always do it next turn and then play out the Teferi anyway, seeing as how that's all we're going to be doing regardless. Okay, Skull Clamp from Jolly Balloon Man likely goes on to the Spirited Companion, so they do kill off the dog, which adds credence to the idea that we probably could have got through with the Skulker had we have wanted to get down the Ominous Seas before now. Anyway, they draw additional cards, so Fairy Mastermind will draw as well. Loot becomes exerted with red mana, which equates to 3 damage to any target, so obviously could have done that onto our Ginger Brew if he'd wanted to. Instead goes after the Chasm Skulker before we start drawing a bunch of cards. He does have to exert in order to do that though. It's equal to the number of counters as opposed to the power, so we only get 1 squid token. Not really all that bothered about keeping the Chasm Skulker in play, to be honest. Transit Mage, that is the new one that goes for an artifact, mana value 4 or 5. So they grab the Ether Spark, haven't seen this one played yet. Throws the Ether Spark into play and attaches it with the plus ability onto the loot. So that now has 5 loyalty and a plus counter went onto the loot, making it a 3/5. The 3/5 swings in at us, everyone's worried about us drawing additional cards. I'm going to hold on because we might have to play Teferi next turn, so I'm just going to hold on to as many blockers as possible. That's a shame to see the end of the Brainstorm there. We would have drawn 6 cards for 1 mana and put 2 on top. Don't want to risk losing out on our commander here, so I'm just going to take the damage. I wouldn't have thought they'd be able to buff that thing or anything. Maybe they could, and maybe they'd want to give it double strike as well, so best to just let the damage through, I think. And there was a Toxic Deluge, so should have blocked anyway apparently. They left the loot in play, weirdly. Oh, of course, it's because they wanted to keep their own commander. So we'll return our commander to the command zone, and we'll see if we were going to draw into a land anyway. We were not. That's tempting to go for that, but I think I'd rather just get the commander down whilst our opponents are largely tapped out. We don't have to worry about a sword here or anything, so go for it. Missing out on a land doesn't feel good there, so we might have to go for this after all. This is why I'm glad that we got up to the max speed as quickly as we did though. Molten Gatekeeper is another means of pinging us. Loot swings in at us as well, can make use of its vigilance and double strike. So deals damage to us with first strike first, putting the counters on it, on the Ether Spark that is, so goes up to 11 loyalty. And then minus down by 5 to draw 2 cards, I think it must have been. So he's now at the 6 loyalty after the double strike and minus down. Open the Way is a sorcery where X was 4, so reveal cards from the top. Until you reveal X lands, they go in tapped. So I don't think they got anything too crazy there, just some duels and extra basics. Ramping ahead though, it'd be interesting to see if my opponents start to focus elsewhere at any point. Let's see where this commander swings in. Okay, goes into the left this time. Seems as though loot is being ignored largely, but he does have double strike and vigilance unfortunately. So a Cathar Commando gets milled there. We ironically get a 20-toed toad milled over here. Vile Entomber, can this go for any card or just creatures? Yeah, it can go for any card into the bin, so it is Entomb with legs. And throws anger away in order to get haste. He does have a mountain in play and holds up 3 mana, passing the turn over to us, so see if we can actually draw some cards here or not. We draw 2 at the beginning of the turn, so we do get into an island. Could we just go for Solemn Simulacrum to set up some more mana and not look too threatening, as well as getting a chump blocker in? It's not flashy, but I think that's what I want to do here. It might make people less likely to swing in at us as well, because we'll draw 2 to the Solemn. And then Wayfarer's Bauble as well may be able to crack that next turn. But we're not drawing an astronomical amount of cards yet. We can hold back a little bit now that we have finally got the max speed. Best to get that sooner than later for obvious reasons. The Jolly Balloon Man comes into play for the first time. So we all get pinged by the Gatekeeper. He can't currently afford to make a copy of Molten Gatekeeper and equip the copy with Skull Clamp, which is what you would want to do. I think you sacrifice with this. Yeah, you sacrifice as opposed to exiling at the end of the turn. Instead decides to make a copy of the artifact creature. So pinging us all again, we are nearly down to half of our life total already. 1/1 goes to the right, doesn't really matter where he swings in with that. Decides to go in down the middle instead. And strangely, Loot decides to just take it. And at the end of the turn, go for Loot's ability again. This time it is draw 3 cards, he's got 5 in hand at the minute. Spark Double comes down as a copy of something and makes another loot. Obviously this loot isn't exerted at all. Can only go for the add 3 mana with this now, I think. And now the original loot is going into the right for some double strike damage. The copy is going into the left, so we're being left alone now, as Solemn Simulacrum can do sometimes. Even if it only draws you 1 card, it can act as a ghostly prison effect. The Vile Entomber blocks the commander damage. And I think with this he only has to deal combat damage during his turn. Yeah, so he still gets the loyalty counters, but he'll only get first strike loyalty because the creature dies. And oh, actually, yeah, this has double strike. It would have to have trample to get through with the second round of damage. So 9 loyalty on this, doesn't quite get the 10. Kiora's follower can untap a creature, won't help with the exerted though. Went for the minus on that, so drew 2 cards, goes up to 8 in hand again. Cracks one of his fetches, and another one. After which it is a talisman, just continuing to get out his ramp cards and likely play at instant speed from here on out. Loot was always the one to worry about, but us getting our speed up really quickly really concerned some players, I think. Yargla Multani, a vanilla 18/6. And that does have haste because of the anger. Commander comes in at us again. And the 18/16 comes in towards us, so maybe we just take the damage and hold back Solemn Simulacrum for blocking the Yargla Multani. And this time mill a Labman. We've got... I don't think I put Thoracle in the combo or in the deck. We've got the Jace, but I don't think I put Thassa's Oracle in here. So we're definitely just getting attacked by the 1 creature. We will take the 3 commander. Noteworthy that they've just milled into Brawn. I was just thinking that they would make use of Trample on this thing. And now they will. Because they do control a forest, only just. And now have Trample on their 18/6. The original commander is deciding to block. So those 2 creatures will trade, but he'll still take a nice chunk from this thing. Sol Ring was milled here and an E-Witness over here. And then, oh, that's clever. He blocked with this for the first strike damage, dealt 3 damage to it, and then lightning bolted the rest with the other loot. And then decides to scoop to that. That's I don't even know, is that even a shame scoop? I'm glad I didn't block with the Solemn now. Although, I don't think second strike damage. No, it can't have gone through yet. So there we draw into Jace in just the nick of time apparently. We can draw 4 cards off a Muldrifter. I think Teferi should be half decent now. The board's kind of gunked up over here. We could actually phase out the Ether Spark, because that is an equipment on the loot. Maybe it's worth going for the Teferi then. Might be that we have to start worrying about counter magic from loot, who is holding up priority with a full grip. But decides to let that down. We'll go Ominous Seas. Maybe should have got that down first because I'm passing priority with Teferi in play. But we can activate this at instant speed anyway, can't we? So let's go for a +1 on the Teferi. That will draw us 2 cards and we discard 1. Which means it's 2 counters on the Ominous Seas. We didn't play a land this turn, did we? I don't think Binding of Thassa is going to be particularly good. Because we're not getting into a lot of creatures, so get rid of that. Play the Amonkhet Raceway and pass the turn. It's just a colourless land now. Rosy Cotton of South Lane. Whenever you create a token, put a plus counter on a creature. That can be part of combos, which is probably what it's in here for. 1 damage to each of us with the Molten Gatekeeper. He's still struggling on mana over here, so maybe he's just playing that for going for the Skull Clamp onto it in order to make a land. Although if he's going to do that, it might have been worth just making a copy of the Molten Gatekeeper and then equipping with Clamp. But you'd only get the card draw at the end of the turn then anyway. Anyhow, Rosie puts a plus counter on the Gatekeeper. Noteworthy that with Jolly you can only do it at sorcery speed, so if we wanted to interrupt with some triggers on the stack, then we could do that. Decides to make a copy of Rosie. That is legendary, so he'll only keep 1 of those. And another plus counter goes on to the Gatekeeper and gets another food token from it as well. So the food token enters, and the copy of Rosie was a token that triggered it the first time. The food token entering puts yet another counter on the Gatekeeper. So we go through to combat at 21 life, and this is now a 5/6. And decides to pass the turn, thankfully, so not going to be encouraged to block with our commander, or with the Solemn even. Alright, so at the end of the turn, Teferi, we can plus on again, draw 2, discard 1. And alright, get into our 3rd and final Planeswalker in Teferi. I'm going to assume that we're going to draw into another land, so I'll get rid of the island. But that's more Ominous Seas triggers. Halfway to making an 8/8. Now, this has been exerted a couple of times. I think it does actually tell us. I think it's done all of the things. Or have they made the mana with it yet? I keep saying exert, I meant exhausted. Yeah, doesn't actually keep track, which isn't useful. But I don't want him to move this thing around, so I'm going to force his hand here. He's got a full grip, but I'm hoping he doesn't have flicker. If he does, then he does. We'll go for phasing that out and try and get rid of the Planeswalker as well. Taps for blue, and that is a shore up. So it gains hexproof and you untap it. That's fair enough. We thought he might have something like that. So we're probably going to lose the Teferi now, but we've drawn a decent number of cards off that at least. So see how much he dedicates into Teferi. Probably takes both of his commanders in. And that goes in at us. That's a 4/6. And that one goes in at the Planeswalker. Can we take 8 damage? 8 commander damage takes us to 18, I'm assuming. I'd only kick myself if we went down to commander here. So as much as I don't want to, we'll lose out on the Teferi and I'll block with Solemn. But it's annoying that we can't keep track of which abilities have been exhausted there. It's pretty much the only information we need with this commander. Anyway, they dealt damage. Doing more with the Ether Spark, we draw 2 with the Simulacrum, which means we get 2 counters with the Ominous Seas. There is a foil for us. With that we have to discard an island, annoyingly. We just got rid of an island. And discard another card as well to get it for free. We could actually grab an island with the Lorien revealed if we wanted to. So that might be worth noting. Draw 2 with the Ether Spark. 3 visits to get some more ramp going. Deadeye Navigator, they're just going to pretty much combo off with, so let's go for island cycling with the Lorien revealed. Obviously grab an island, and we'll try and do the foil for free. Discard an island, discard. The Imperial Plate's going to be too slow maybe, but we don't have that many ways of winning at the moment. We just can't swing through with the commander at the moment, so could go on the Muldrifter, but we're just not doing too well on mana, so yeah, I'll get rid of it. Managed to get rid of Deadeye, so they maybe don't have another counterspell in hand. So let's see what we can do here. We can, at the very least, we've got Ominous Seas online now with 8 counters. Blink of an Eye can draw us 2 cards if we put 4 mana into it as well. Let's get down an island. Do we want Teferi's Puzzle Box in play and then just hold up Blink of an Eye? And we've got a means of blocking with Ominous Seas as well. That way we can maybe crack the Wayfarer's Bauble also. Might be worth doing. We're just getting exponentially more cards from the Teferi's Puzzle Box then. Might be able to start to pull away. We can do the Ominous Seas a Octopus or Kraken at any point. Can play that at instant speed, so that's fine. So the Puzzle Box triggers at the beginning of each player's draw phase here. So they draw first and then shuffle everything around, which might help this player get into some lands finally. Turn 8 and he's only got 4 in play. Did manage to get into a pain land here. Blade Splicer enters with a 3/3 token, and when he makes that token he'll be able to have Rosie put plus counters on it, and I think it has first strike. Yeah, this gives the token first strike, which might be useful. So yeah, it does put the plus counter on the Phyrexian Golem. So he's now going to make use of the additional mana. He can make a copy of Blade Slicer, and then when the copy of the Blade Splicer enters, that will trigger Rosy Cotton, more pings with this. He's got a Skull Clamp target now as well, with that additional mana. So with that, this ends up with 3 plus counters on it, a 6/6 first strike. We'll keep the 3/3 first strike when this goes down as well, and does indeed clamp the copy. 5/6, I was worried about that, swinging in towards us. Might as well just make the Ominous Seas token now then. I wanted to hold it off for this guy, but if he can interfere with it, then so be it. We can at least get rid, or try to get rid of the Molten Gatekeeper, so it's not constantly pinging us any more than it already has. Noteworthy it is a 5/6 first striker, but that doesn't matter. Unless this guy has a bolt left that I can't remember about. I don't think he does on these. He used this one on our Chasm Skulker previously, and then this to take out the other player. Okay, he runs Lightning Bolt apparently. Oh, making him use it. It's noteworthy that the idea of this deck loosely is to get cheap creatures into play that have the abilities that care about us drawing a second card per turn. So we'll get like tokens out and stuff like that that we can chump with. We've spent most of the game just having 1 or 2 creatures in play, which means we're struggling with combat here. Yeah, and it's just a way stronger deck than ours, I think, that we're playing against with loot. So Mystical Tutor, and went for Cyclonic Rift. Alright, so he's going to be forced to use the Rift now. He's drawn into the Cyclonic Rift, and now the puzzle box is on the stack. So that's one slight benefit at least. Let's go Blink of an Eye to try and encourage him to do something else. Unfortunately, it will knock the exhaust off his commander, but I mean, we're just making him replay it at least, so either that or he's got interaction in his hand. So let's go Blink of an Eye, and we'll kick it to draw the 2 cards. At least with the Cyclonic Rift we would have lost the Octopus token anyway, or the Kraken token, I keep calling it an octopus. So there we go, just as I was talking about it, Emrakul's Messenger is one of the creatures we were after. They allowed their commander to be bounced. They've got the Teferi's Puzzle Box on the stack still, bouncing that won't change that. So they're going to end up tucking their commander if they're not careful. They'll probably end up back in the command zone. Okay, and loot, I've noticed, hasn't ended up in the command zone either. That is what I just said, that he has to be careful not to tuck his commander. So with this, they end up on the bottom of the library in any order. So his commander is now on the bottom of his library. He's not likely to get into that again, which is going to be great for us, assuming that we don't go down straight away here. Command Beacon is from the command zone into your hand, and it is 6 damage from this thing. It is not commander damage though. Draw 3 cards with that thing, so they're up to 7. Haven't been too far below 7 all game. Rampant Growth will shuffle the library, so they're more likely to get into their commander at least. Maybe should have done that before going for the loot, but maybe they just drew into it. And there is a Mystic Remora. I'm keeping track of the Game Changer cards we see here, because I think I asked for a bracket 3 game here, and just keeping loose track of the Game Changer list. Mystical Tutor and Cyclonic Rift are both on there. Surprisingly, Mystic Remora isn't for some reason. Anyhow, we finally start drawing into some ramp by turn 9. I think we have to go for the island. Definitely play our commander. Priority being held up by the teamer player. Let's go for the Emrakul's Messenger as well. And then just have to be a Muldrifter, unfortunately. I would like to have the Lightning Greaves in play, but just trying to rebuild after the Rift, as you so often have to. So we'll draw hopefully 4 cards here. And we've drawn our second card, which means we get into an Eldrazi Spawn. And there is our other means of token production, or one of our other means of token production, with multiple cards being drawn. So yeah, we've no max hand size with the commander, so don't have to worry too much about anything else. Could maybe trade this out for the Wayfarer's Bauble, but it's more helpful as a blocker at the moment, I think, so pass the turn at that. I think on Magic Online I might have to... I've been trying to weaken my variants just to make more interesting games, but I think I might have to make a more busted version of this with like Fierce Guardianship and Mana Vault and all the Game Changer list cards. I'm not sure how popular this commander will be though, so we might not see it again after today. Jolly Balloon Man has haste but nothing to copy. Gets Rosie into play again. Mystic Remora didn't give our opponent a chance to draw any cards here, but he's got plenty of mana to keep it in play. 5 cards in hand at the beginning of the turn. Throws the Equipment Planeswalker onto the loot, and the loot goes into the left this time. So ideally we'd be able to bounce this thing so he doesn't have access to a loot, although I think he's totally exhausted everything here anyway. Decides to take the damage, so gets more loyalty onto his Planeswalker. It's been very impressive this game. So ends up at 12 loyalty on that thing. Squee the Immortal. Smells like Food Chain combo, which I hope it isn't. Alright, so we get our board left alone for now. He's only got 4 cards in hand, which is good. He didn't refill again, unlike us. Alright, Cryptic Command probably worth holding up. Yeah, we drew 2 cards there, so make another Eldrazi Spawn. So after we play a land, we've got 8, 9, 10 and 12 mana held up. So I think we're probably wise to play at instant speed or get down the Ominous Seas, I think. It does unfortunately draw a card with that Mystic Remora. And then we could go for drawing him another card with Mind Stone. That would allow us to hold up 7 mana, which would be both Brain Surge and Cryptic Command. Yeah, it's unfortunate that he is going to refill his hand off this thing, but We'll go Mind Stone as well, because I'm not sure if I'm going to regret not having the mana next turn. Then hopefully we're safe to take a couple of flyers into the right. He doesn't have any means of reach or flying, so yeah, every bit of damage is going to matter, I think. Here's when it's a shame that we don't have the Imperial Plate available to us anymore, but you can see what the tactic is. But the good thing is with a Brain Surge, assuming that it lands, we can draw 8 and discard 2, or put 2 on top, and that immediately pays for the Ominous Seas. Don't often run Ominous Seas, it's in a lot of decks, but I don't think it's often that good, but it is really good in this deck as we've seen so far. Solemn Simulacrum for the Boros player, and he should still have Skull. And he doesn't have Skull Clamp available to him anymore, that is in the bin. And he doesn't have Skull Clamp available to him anymore, that is in the bin. Makes a copy of the Solemn. There's now a plus counter on his Commander from Rosie and one on the Golem. 1-1 with haste goes into the right, so he's going to draw from this regardless. Decides to take it, so goes down to 16. And I think at the end of the turn, to maximise the number of cards we're drawing into Emrakul's Messenger, even though it feeds a card over here, I'm hoping we'll be able to counter any problematic cards, so I'll go for the Brain Surge now. So again, if this lands, it will draw 8, and we put 2 on top. Okay, so we get a token from that, the Ominous Seas. We are going to be able to make a token as well. And there we go, there's a buff for our hand as well. We've got Counter Magic. Let's just put a land and a Sol Ring on top of the library. Noxious Revival puts a Cyclonic Rift on top of the library again. So doing that during the end step, obviously trying to draw into it. We've got a couple of means of counter magic now. I can hard cast the Cryptic Command, and the Force of Negation can get rid of it as well, both of which we'll be able to cast. So the Boros player ends with a food token in play, a couple of mana held up, 7 cards in hand. I assume Mystic Remora is going to continue to stick around. I'm just thinking if this is Food Chain combo, he might be trying to bait us into countering a Cyclonic Rift, so we can go off with Food Chain this turn perhaps. Pays the 2 mana into the cumulative upkeep. He can Rift whenever he wants here, but we're not really all that concerned with that. Whereas before he was forced into it thanks to the Teferi's Puzzle Box. Draws 2 more cards. Love to know how many extra cards he's drawn off this thing. And now throws out a Gemstone Mine. Just deciding to go through to combat here. He'll have plenty of mana left up even after the Cyclonic Rift. This comes in at us, we just chump block it all day. Let's go for making a Kraken now. What is this thing? A 4/6 with double strike, so we could try and get rid of the loot, just so that it's less of a threat to us and he's making less use of the Ether Spark then. Because we could always make another one. Draw 6 cards into Thirst for Knowledge. Okay, 3 mana of any one colour, so he did have another exhaust ability on that thing after all. That's during the attack phase though, so we'll have to use the mana now. And Vault Skyward. Target creature gains flying until the end of the turn. So what can we do with Cryptic? We could bounce the clone, because we really don't want to be taking this damage if we can help it. This is where we get punished for attacking him with the flyers. So I think going for a counter onto that wouldn't be the worst. So we'll go for drawing a couple of cards and counter the Vault Skyward, I think. Again, he gets to draw with that Mystic Remora. And this way we get to draw a couple more cards to this thing. Make another counter. And that means that if we decided to go for Thirst for Knowledge, I could have sacrificed one of these to hold up the blue mana, I suppose. But I just want as many tokens in play as possible. But it does mean that this is going to make it so that we can make another Kraken next turn. So we still get the Kraken regardless, they were just trying to fly over it. We have to hold on to counter magic now really for the Cyclonic Rift that we know they have in hand. So there it is, we will Force of Negation, exile a blue card from hand, go after the Rift, and it can just be the Teferi at this point I think. Chances are that they've got a counter magic in hand, but I'm not sure we've seen too much counter magic from this player actually. That's 2 Rifts we've had to battle with though. Luckily I did put 3 counter magic in the deck because it's Magic Online. So that thing gets exiled. And now we can block this thing that is, yeah, still a 4/6 double strike, so they trade. Managed to take down the Spark Double. The Planeswalker ends up at a 15 loyalty, but I think they've already activated that. Utopia Sprawl for more mana, Talisman of Creativity, and now with it will be 16 cards in hand, we might be able to take this guy out if he can't interfere with us. Draw 2 at the beginning, there's a Scourge of Fleets, 2 more into the Ominous Seas. I forgot about those at the beginning of the turn as well, so we're definitely going to have enough cards to make another Kraken with this. Play an island. Let's go for Swiftfoot Boots onto the Muldrifter first of all. I know we're playing into our opponent's Mystic Remora, unfortunately. Equip this to Muldrifter. Want to definitely try and get the Hand of Vecna through this turn. And that is successfully equipped, so play this. Equip that to the Muldrifter, that will get +X, where X is the number of cards in our hand, currently 13, but we can draw more with the Thirst for Knowledge, assuming it lands. Good job we've got that card draw as well, because we don't quite have enough to one-shot this guy. Only triggers at the beginning of combat as well, which I'm glad I just read. So let's go for Thirst for Knowledge here. I will crack a couple of Eldrazi Spawn to do it, because we're running low on blue mana. So we draw a bunch, and we'll just discard an artifact. We're not going to make use of the Sword of the Animist, so just discard that. Keep the maximum number of cards in hand. Ominous Seas, continuing to do Ominous Seas stuff. And then we're through to the beginning of combat, where Hand of Vecna will trigger on the flyer. And now you see what we were looking to do with the Imperial Plate previously. That becomes a 19/19, so hopefully can one-shot the Teamer player here. Don't have any more counter magic available to us. Is this a sorcery? Yes it is. So he goes down. That's really good. So that was the biggest threat all game gone. And now can we go for this and just make a bunch of copies of something? I think that should be fine. Make a couple of copies of the Muldrifter and draw 2 cards to this as well. Does mean that we're losing out on the Eldrazi Spawn, but if we lose at this point I'm not really all that bothered. As long as we could have got rid of the Teamer player, that's all I really cared about. But we'll have blockers held back, and plus we'll have a bunch of counters on this, so we draw 2 to the Season of Weaving and then make the token copies of Muldrifter, each of which will come in and draw us 4 cards apiece. So it's not typically worth evoking with this. We want to try and keep it in play for plays such as this. End up with obviously a heap of cards in hand. Don't have any more free counter magic in the deck, I don't think. We do have Mystic Confluence and the Commit to Memory there, but can't actually play them now. Got 26 cards in hand, so hopefully this will be able to take our opponent out next turn. He's got a full grip though, so might be able to do something still. Next turn, with 26 cards in our hand, we should be able to go for the Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, and then the Seagate Restoration and just win the game, because we'll draw that many cards and end up decking ourselves, so that could be a play we go for as well. Meteor Golem can blow up the Hand of Vecna, so we might have to do that. If our opponent decides to wipe the board of creatures, then we've got the 8/8s to swing in with, although that wouldn't be lethal quite. So does blow up the Vecna, but that did its job already. Then makes a copy of the Meteor Golem, so can blow something else up. Points that at the Ominous Seas, so we just make a couple of Krakens in response to that. That has done some work for us this game. Loyal Warhound, I'm not sure if he's got more lands than us at this point. It does trigger when it enters, so we draw a couple of cards at the beginning of the turn as ever. Make another Emrakul's Messenger token, and there we see Ancient Tomb, one of the game changer cards in this deck as well. So let's aim for the Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, and then we can drop the Ancient Tomb and play our Seagate Restoration. And that will draw us 50 cards, because we've got 25 cards in hand, or actually it's that many plus 1 I think. Anyway, it's enough to completely deck ourselves, and with the Jace, Wielder of Mysteries in play, that will be the end of this game, hopefully. Yep, so there we go down to 0 in hand, and win the game to the Jace. Likely we would have won that one anyway, because our opponent is just forced to make blocks against us. And I'm sure there's other stuff that we could have done, like bouncing the creatures with Mystic Confluence and stuff like that to make it more difficult for them. Yeah, so that was a pretty rough one against Loot at first, but managed to put him under control, and I think we were helped by a misclick there as well. He did lose his commander with a bunch of mana held up, so that very much helped us. But we've seen Loot go off on the channel before, so I'm glad to see A win for the Verbose host. If you want to see more from it, then be sure to let me know as ever and leave a like on the video, all that other YouTube stuff. Massive thank you to the patrons for their support of the channel as well. Please consider donating through the link in the description below if you do like the videos. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.